Every Smash game has a modding scene, but nearly all of them are simply competing for second place. When it comes to Smash mods, no one can beat the king, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. From Project M to the legacy projects, there are few games that have as active and dedicated a scene as Brawl, especially for a game that is technically not even supposed to be modded in the first place. We've reached a point with Brawl modding where it honestly feels like there isn't anything we can't do given enough time on a problem. Modifying the game and adding costumes are one thing, but the sheer number of fully custom characters with functional and sometimes really advanced movesets is even more impressive. And that's why today I want to talk about a specific mod pack, Project M EX Remix. Now, despite the name, this isn't a project like Project M or Project Plus. Rather than having a team create their own dedicated content, the aim of this build is to instead consider and curate the best of the best available for Brawl modding and compile it all into a single pack. The best characters, stages, music, costumes, all in one easy download. And that means, yeah, the character roster is crazy. Smash Ultimate looks minuscule compared to this thing. It's honestly starting to look like one of those insane fan rosters that you used to find on Google Images in like 2005. It's crazy. Now, I just want to make sure it comes off crystal clear that the team that's putting this pack together did not make everything here, and they don't pretend that they have. Some things in the pack are things that they have done originally, but it's kind of a mixture of pre-existing mods and work that the Remix team has done. So let's go ahead and take a look at Project M EX Remix. The first thing to get out of the way is that this is of course built on top of Project M and Project Plus, so you will find all of their characters in this roster, including the finished Knuckles from Project Plus and fan-finished versions of both Isaac and Lyn, characters that were originally planned for Project M before they ceased development. On top of that, this build also includes all of the characters made for Super Smash Bros. Legacy XP, so you'll also find characters like Ridley, Geno, Shadow, and Metal Sonic, for example. But I won't harp on about those characters too much because both of those projects were so big that most of you have probably played them or at the very least seen them. I want to talk about some of the more obscure or impressive stuff, and we're gonna start with backported characters. Whenever a new character is added to the current Smash game, we're always impressed by the mechanics that are introduced. Every single one nowadays seems to have a thing that makes them more than just a generic game character fighter, like Cloud's Limit or Joker's Arsene. But what's even more impressive is when these complex characters with built-in systems get ported back to Brawl with their crazy movesets. I mean, look at this. We have Smash Ultimate Sora running on a console that's technically just a really souped-up GameCube. Now, none of these characters are obviously going to be perfect. For one thing, they exist in a completely different game environment, so there's just no way everything can be one-to-one. But for all intents and purposes, this is Smash Ultimate Sora. He's not as floaty as an Ultimate, which is partially because Project M as a whole made the game much less floaty, but on top of that, the creator of the Sora Brawl mod, as well as the team putting EX Remix together, are both going to include their own biases and change things up the way they personally see fit. But that's Sora. He's in the game. He's got his rotating spells, his unique attack combos both in the air and on the ground, and even his Sonic Blade, though it doesn't lock onto enemy players, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on which side of the attack you're on. Another set of characters brought backwards from Ultimate to this game is Pyra and Mythra. Unfortunately, because of the limitations of the hardware, they haven't been given the ability to transform between each other, they're just now separate characters. Now, I suspect the reason isn't because it's impossible for them to transform. Zelda and Sheik have a transform ability in Brawl, so it's clearly doable on the hardware. But if you look at how long it can take these characters to swap versus how quickly it can be done in Ultimate, they probably made the better decision. Even at its fastest, Zelda's transform is still slower than Aegis. So instead, both Pyra and Mythra are given unique down specials to make up for the transform ability being stripped away. For Pyra's down special, she ignites the ground beneath her and leaves it on fire for some time, causing anyone touching this area to take gradual burn damage. Mythra, on the other hand, has a counter. This actually stuns the enemy for kind of a ridiculous amount of time, even at 0%. But the trade-off is that this has a super tight timing, making it really easy to whiff entirely. Another set of mechanics they weren't exactly able to replicate are the fighting game characters' special inputs. Coming from official Smash games, the pack has Ryu, Ken, and Terry. These characters at least have something to emulate special inputs, but it's mostly a matter of inputting a direction in a jab combo or performing a hold rather than a press for a projectile. Unfortunately, there just isn't anything like the special Shoryuken or Hadoken inputs, they're just using their special moves. The exception, however, seems to be Terry's Go Sauce moves. Like in Ultimate, when Terry gets over 100%, he has the little Go icon appear, and he can perform both of his super special moves. They seem to have gotten these to work in Brawl as well. You can do both Buster Wolf and Power Geyser. However, because these input systems were never a thing in Brawl, I suspect that they are much harder to replicate. You can do those moves, but I found it to be really inconsistent based on all of my attempts. I could get them to execute maybe like half the time, but the other half I was just doing Burning Knuckle or Power Dunk. It's probably something that could still have some work done, but again, it's just something that wasn't in Vanilla Brawl, so it's impressive that it even kind of works sometimes. And you know I gotta talk about Banjo-Kazooie briefly. This version of the character is interesting because if memory serves, it started out as a quite original moveset for Banjo-Kazooie prior to their official announcement for Smash. It was meant to sort of be a consolation prize of sorts if we never got them in the real game. But it was still in progress when Banjo was revealed, so I think they sort of mishmash Frankenstein their planned out moveset with the official animations that we got for Smash, and the result is this character. It's certainly not terrible by a long shot, though I think you can tell that this was definitely a work in progress that sorta got abandoned after their official release. Despite that though, it's nice to see an alternate take on the moveset that we could have gotten. But I think the most interesting backported character is Hero. Starting out, they just made the character of Hero the protagonist from Dragon Quest III rather than the 4-in-1 character we have in Ultimate, probably because it's just way easier, but also because that hero is definitely the most popular. And I won't waste any more time. I know your immediate thought was, how does his command selection work? In Smash Ultimate, Hero stands still and the menu appears above his percent, offering 4 random spells. In EX Remix, the spell command instead appears next to the character model and it does not generate random spells. Instead, the spells are the same every single time and they're all chosen not by an A press, but by pressing the particular taunt button. The only spells available are Kamikaze on up taunt, Hatchet Man on down taunt, both Flame and Crackle Slashes alternating on right taunt, and Snooze on left taunt. Along with this, there is no more MP bar, meaning that you can use these spells pretty much as often as you want without fear of running out of mana. Other than that, this is straight up Hero. All of the moves are basically the same on paper with tweaks here and there, plus the fact that, again, we're doing this in Brawl. If I recall, crits are also no longer a thing, but I'm not sure if that's because they're difficult to implement or because people really hate crits. Frankly, I think it's incredibly cool to see how the creators of Hero in this game made compromises, but ultimately were still able to bring this fairly complex character that had an entire subsystem developed on top of Smash Ultimate and bring it all the way back to Brawl. It certainly helps that with these backports, a lot of these animations are literally just copy and pasted from Ultimate, so that the big brunt of the work is coding hitboxes and all of the special moves. And speaking of animations and movesets, there are also some pretty clever repurposes of some of Smash 4 and Ultimate's bigger changes to characters. For instance, Bowser had some pretty significant changes when you compare Brawl to Smash 4 and Ultimate. Because of this, Project M Bowser is largely a rework of Brawl Bowser. So to bring Bowser's Ultimate moveset back into Brawl, that moveset is instead plopped onto Dry Bowser, who is made a completely separate character. Regular Bowser has his big head bash forward smash, for example, while Dry Bowser has the giant kick forward smash. Differences like that. Another really cool example is Toon Zelda. Project M's version of Zelda has a handful of changes that make her more competitively viable, with the biggest being her side special now serving as more of a hazard when used rather than just a straight up explosion. But Ultimate Zelda has a cool kit as well, and they wanted to bring this over. So rather than replace Zelda, a new character of Toon Zelda receives the Ultimate moveset, complete with the Toon aesthetics on her moves. I don't know why, but this one is just really cool to me. When I first loaded her up, I wondered how she differed, and then once I realized it, it just ended up being a really cool oh moment. And this Zelda even has the Phantom as her down special, and it actually makes sense now, seeing as it was Toon Zelda and Spirit Tracks who could control Phantoms in the first place. It's chef's kiss. I just think it's cool that they've implemented current movesets in a way that doesn't erase the new Project M movesets, so you can have the best of both worlds. And speaking of the best of both worlds, you've got Lucina, who literally has 2 movesets. She's got an all-new moveset that really separates her from Marth, but just for good measure, you can hold L while selecting her and play using her Smash Ultimate moveset instead. See what I mean? This pack is just filled with so much. It's like everywhere you look, there's something new. And then of course, we gotta talk about some of the completely original characters that have never been in Smash before, and people just decided, fine, we'll do it ourselves. There's a really cool Fierce Deity Link character who uses a ton of crazy magic attacks as well as overpowered attacks with his oversized sword, charging up powerful moves and really being a nuisance to deal with sometimes. And you can't forget the Pokemon when making new characters, and this build has two completely original Pokemon fighters, Blaziken and Zeraora. Both of these are really cool, and I can't really describe their movesets as anything except how I'd expect them to play in Smash. Blaziken feels like a fire fighting type with tons of in-your-face moves that attack with fire, while Zeraora instead uses electricity and its claws to attack. I can't really describe them more than that. I think my personal favorite original character though has got to be Toad. The fun of this character is that it pulls from all the different appearances that Toad has made, from Mario Kart to Captain Toad to New Super Mario Bros. To Mario Party. It's a really weird amalgamation of tidbits here and there to make a really fun moveset. And just for good measure, you can also play as Toadette or Toadsworth. And there's also the Sandbag, yes, the Smash Bros. Home Run Contest Sandbag, who uses all kinds of movesets and properties that are Smash original. Attacking with the music track item, turning metal by using a metal box, even its recovery is hitting itself with the home run bat. It's just hilarious. And I feel like I haven't even scraped the tip of the iceberg. There are just so many characters. There's a sick Sub-Zero moveset that implements all sorts of his ice moves from Mortal Kombat. And honestly, playing as this, it really makes me wish Mortal Kombat could be in Smash someday. There's X and Zero from Mega Man, U from Persona 4, this character, whoever that is, a really unique set of D-clone characters like Dark Samus and Daisy. Hell, they even have funny Skeleton Man in the game as a character. This pack really has something for everyone, and I haven't even touched the amount of costumes and stages available in this game either, though those are a little bit harder to touch on without getting monotonous. And I haven't even talked about all the original characters, it feels like something you have to download and play for yourself and just mess around with everybody to truly get the correct experience for this kind of pack. I mean, this build has so much in it that the developers don't even recommend running it on a Wii. But I like a challenge and you can't tell me what to do, so let's put that to the test.